Hello, everybody. All right, we should have sound and we should be up. And just checking that we're live right now. And I hope we are. Looks like we are live as we speak, which is fantastic. I'm happy to be here with everybody. This is the old man himself talking about the digital world. And every Saturday, 3 p.m., I'm coming out with you talking about the things I love in sci-fi, the things I love in entertainment, video games, Warhammer, Farscape, a whole bunch of stuff. And hopefully I think you guys will enjoy it and have a good time with it as well. Just want to make sure the chat's up here. There we go. And here we go. Hello, everyone. So we should be up right now on YouTube. There's our YouTube channel, which is Tears of Voss, and also my No Soundbites Allowed main channel, which is more about political commentary. But man cannot live by politics alone. He must have bread, he must have cheese, and he must have beer. Well, those things I have, but there's one other thing I would add into that. Sci-fi. You must have sci-fi. And I think that makes it all well-rounded. So this is very informal. It's nothing like what I do with my political commentary. This is just me talking with you guys about the various things going on. And I wanted to talk, last week we were talking about Farscape, which I think is a fantastic show. I think it's far better than anything that's out right now. And that made me think. I mean, one of the leads on Farscape is a great character, and that character is Erin Sun, played by Claudia Black. She's a great actor. She does very well. And Erin Sun is a great character. She's a strong woman. She's out there on her own. She's a soldier. She's accomplished. She's smart. She's sexy. She's a great character. And she's one of the co-leads in the Farscape series, about 81 episodes. And she's in every episode, and she's pivotal to the success of the entire show. If you don't like Erin Sung, you won't like the series. And everyone does like her. In fact, many people look at her and her co-lead, which would be John Crichton, also known as Bryn Browder. And when people see him, they often think they're actually a married couple. People think they're married to each other in real life. Their relationship is that real and that realistic in the way that they talk with each other, the way they interact with each other. And again, this is something we don't see in most of the stuff that's out there right now. I mean, when you think about Amazon's Rings of Power, you've got Galadriel, and not Galadriel, because she's nothing like the character in the books or in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. Galadriel she's married. Where's her husband? No one's seen him. She doesn't talk about him. She's had, maybe one line in the entire, so far, 1.5 seasons. She's mentioned her husband, once? That's it. It's ridiculous. And, of course, you've got the Acolyte. There are no men there, no husbands. There's no male figures really connected to any of the females. And that's a theme that we see consistently in Disney Marvel, in Disney Star Wars. And we see that in other media as well. Men just don't really exist anymore. And that made me wonder. We've got all these girl bosses running around. People like Rey Palpatine. We've got characters like Osha from the Acolyte. We've got characters like, like I said, Galadriel. They're girl bosses. Fantastic. Echo in the Echo TV show. Another girl boss. Fantastic. No one likes these characters. No one likes them. But yet we keep being told that you have to have inclusion. That, something is wrong in sci-fi, something is wrong in entertainment if we don't have someone who looks just like you in every single movie. Think about what we're seeing right now in what's the Star Wars Outlaws. We have the ugliest female they could put together, not looking nothing like the main model, absolutely ugly looking character, and she's supposed to be the representation of women. This is a character that women are supposed to see themselves in and want to emulate. Looks like a guy. I mean, seriously, looks like a guy. You would think it's a trans character. It's not, but that's what they portrayed out there, and women don't like the character. In fact, nobody likes the character. Besides the fact that the game is bugged to hell, no one likes that character. We saw it with Concord and Dustborn. Nobody likes those characters. No one is seeing themselves in these characters, in these stories. Now, they do see girl bosses all over the place. We've got plenty of them, but we don't have anyone that anyone likes, and anyone that there's no character that we want to emulate or reflects real world life. And I don't believe that you have to see yourself in every single damn character so that you can appreciate that character. Lord of the Rings has been translated into 60 different languages. It's around the entire world, millions of books. It's so popular that we had everything in science fantasy spun off of Lord of the Rings. It's had multiple movies. Before Peter Jackson, there was about 4 different attempts to make a movie, and they just couldn't get it right. Whether they did it animated or in real life, they couldn't pull it off until Peter Jackson did it. And that's also spun off into, now we have the Amazon series. It's because it was popular. And it didn't matter that there weren't a bunch of black men or gay people or trans people or Asians or anything. That wasn't necessary. It's just good characters. And I had to think about this. So I'm thinking about it all. I'm going, well, we see all these examples in medium after medium after medium, except for anime. Anime really has been untouched. Anime has been consistent, that they've always had, well, pretty much always had girl bosses, but they really weren't girl bosses. They were just powerful female characters. Women that were assertive, very often super strong, beyond human limits of strength in terms of actual physical strength, but yet looked incredibly feminine. Women that were in charge of nations and planets and universes, but looked incredibly feminine. Women that had boyfriends, that were the traditional female in everything except for, in that anime world, certain attributes, whether they be magical or scientific. They were feminine. And that kind of throws back, because often what we see in Japan's culture is a retro U.S. culture. They go back to the 50s. There's a big trend of that. They go back to the 70s, a big trend of that. So they're trailing the U.S. in a lot of ways in terms of their entertainment. So they're giving us a picture of what they thought was the best of our past, not our present. And our video games are our present, if not the future, always moving further left. And I'm trying not to make it political, but I'm trying to understand that where this girl boss came from and where we were back in time. And I think it's important that we understand the nature of what it is we're talking about. Hang on, I'm also typing up some stuff here. So I think it's important we understand what is the girl boss, that trope, and what's a good female lead. Because I don't think they're the same thing. And I think that difference is a big deal. I think it makes a huge difference. Bear with me, I'm doing some typing in the background here, trying to make sure this is all up so everyone can see it. So bear with me. 2 seconds, 2 seconds. And by the way, I appreciate everybody who is taking the time to join with me here to check out what we're doing as I expand and explore. And eventually we'll be getting a couple of guests on. We'll be talking about different things. We'll be playing video games. I've already been doing some reviews of If Sun Sets. Pissed off. Got into a fight with YouTube over If Sun Sets, which I think is a pretty good video game. A survival world video game. We'll probably be talking about the Twisted Metal second season. I did a review of the first season back in August of 2023. We recently have been playing, I did a video about the Venom 3 trailer. You can see that as well. But I think the first thing we have to look at is, what the hell's a girl boss? And then we can go back in time and see, well, did they exist in the 70s, 80s, 90s? Over the last 50 some odd years, almost 60 years, have we always had a girl boss and we just didn't know it? Or maybe we can make better characters that women will be attracted to and be interested in being, men will be able to respond positively to, and we can have more characters, not just the female characters, but all characters that wind up being in there, being people that we actually want to see on the screen, that we want to be involved in our stories, that are going to be better, not worse. I mean, I think that's the goal. And that's how we improve our entertainment, by being actually entertained, by actually having characters we want to see on that screen. And it makes money for the movie theaters and the movie studios, and everyone will be happy, as opposed to what we have now, which is everyone's miserable. And perhaps the only people who like that are the progressives and the studio heads, who are more concerned about the politics and the posturing than actually being entertained. I want to be entertained. I want more entertainment. I think that's important. I think it's critical. So let me take a quick look. What is a girl boss? Well, the term is a woman who is successful and ambitious, especially in enterprise. Well, I don't think that's really the way that most people are talking about the girl boss. They're not talking about somebody who owns a business. That's really not what people are talking about. So, and I'm going with, this is the Google AI. I'm trying to be as neutral as possible. They say, negative. Today, girl boss is more commonly used as a negative or ironic term. For example, it can be used to describe a woman who engages in the same abusive and materialistic practices as powerful businessmen, or who creates a toxic work environment. It can also be used, ironically, to describe women doing mundane things as if they were empowering. I think that's more accurate. And that's what we see in most of the characters. Whether you're going to, again, Star Wars Outlaws, well, she's Han Solo. They wanted to make a Han Solo movie, but instead of putting in Han Solo, they had to make it for a modern audience. That doesn't exist. Doesn't exist at all. And so they made this uglified female character. But she's Han Solo. And that's that girl boss mentality. It's that character that is, in all intents and purposes, is a male. But they just slapped on a female skin. This is true not just in video games, but it's in our movies. It's in our TV shows. It's in most things we see now. When we think of Captain Marvel, when you think of that character, Carol Danvers, as it's been portrayed by Brie Larson on the movies, in the Disney movies, what are you seeing there? You're seeing, you get that girl boss vibe, that she's trying to be more manly than all the men. But she's not. And it comes off odd. It doesn't flow. Not because she can't be a powerful character. I mean, she's a superwoman. Look at Wonder Woman. She's incredibly powerful. She's as strong as Superman. Nobody complains. No one has a problem with that. What's the difference between Wonder Woman and Carol Danvers? It's the attitude. It's the writing. It's the mentality. Wonder Woman is still a woman. Carol Danvers is I don't know what she is. She's a girl boss. And that's a big difference. The universe where Wonder Woman exists, she's not the most powerful. She's not the smartest. She's not the bestest ever. She is incredible. She's, again, a superhero, a goddess, in fact. But she's not the bestest ever. She still makes mistakes. She still has friends. She has flaws. It's a human being. You don't get that with Captain Marvel. I think that's a big difference, and it takes away from our entertainment. It takes away from our joy. When we're told you have to like Carol Danvers as Ms. Marvel, you have to enjoy that, even though you don't. That you have to give money to these corporations for something that you don't want, that you don't enjoy. That brings no one happiness. No one's happy about the girl boss in any form of entertainment, especially sci-fi. Sci-fi, we have so many great characters, men and women, and they're not girl bosses, and everyone is happy to put in the money. How many Alien movies did they make? Because we love Ellen Ripley. How many Terminator movies have Sarah Connor? She's iconic. We love that character. But we don't love the girl bosses. There's a big difference. Now, I think the girl boss very often is also a Mary Sue. And the Mary Sue, simply put, is literally the bestest ever. She's Ray Palpatine. To give it some frame, something we can latch onto. So, yeah, a person who is perfect. And that's what we see in many of these girl bosses. They're perfect. They have no growth in their stories because there's nowhere for them to grow to. They were the most powerful. They always were the most powerful. They're not going to be more powerful. They were already perfect. Everyone enjoys their characters. Everyone wants to be their friend, be their lover, be involved and around that character. That's a Mary Sue. And that's what we see very often with the girl boss. The bestest ever, the smartest, the fastest, the strongest, the best plans. Everyone wants to be on their team. Everyone wants to work with them. Everyone is in love with them. They're the bestest ever. It's just another word. And because so many people know what a Mary Sue character is, and because a Mary Sue character is such a negative, it's obvious, well, you can't call modern characters that. You call them a girl boss instead. They started that term as if it were a badge of honor. Yes, of course, she's a girl boss. She's the bestest ever. But what you're really describing is a Mary Sue. And then everyone rejects it because nobody likes perfection. Our characters, the characters we love, like when I was talking about Scorpius last week, why is he one of the great villains? It's not because he always wins. It's not because Scorpius is the strongest ever or the smartest ever. He's got plans upon plans. He makes Thrawn look like an absolute piker, an idiot. Somebody who's just learning how to play chess when Scorpius is playing 3D chess. Well, the difference between why do people love the Scorpius character and Disney's Thrawn as he's been embodied, why is he a laughing stock? Again, it's not because Scorpius is the bestest ever. It's that Thrawn was dumbed down so that the girl boss, which would be Ahsoka, could be raised up. Sabine Wren and Ahsoka were suddenly the bestest characters ever and the smartest, and they had the best plan, and everything works for them because Thrawn is an idiot. And he can't do anything right. And he takes credit for failure because that's all he does is he fails. So if you have a bad villain, there's nothing compelling to watch. We're watching perfect people fight against a very imperfect, flawed bad guy. Who cares? That's not compelling. That's not interesting. That's not going to draw you in. We need to go back to the 70's. I mean, we seriously need to go back to the 70's. Let me take a look. Because we were told, and we have been told consistently, there were no female characters until just now. Until we got the girl boss, there haven't been women out there. Little girls had nothing to look at. Men had nothing to look at that would make them think beyond just the femininity. There's no lead characters. There's no equality. We have to force in that equity. We have to raise up these female characters and turn them into essentially men. Really? Because here it is, and I'm using IMDb because it's a relatively neutral source. So it's not political, it's not biased towards any one political party per se, or at least as best as I can, because no matter what list I can show you, there's always going to be some kind of given. And I have my own, obviously. But what do we see? The top shows of the 1970s. I'm looking at decades here. Charlie's Angels, Wonder Woman, The Bionic Woman, Police Woman. Let's see, what are some of the other top ones out there? MASH obviously had Hot Lips, one of the key characters in that ensemble. Lou Grant had a couple of key female actresses in that. Battlestar Galactica, well, not that version. But there were some women in there, but not significant. Let me see. Buck Rogers had a co-female lead. I remember that. Logan's Run, co-female lead. Sonny and Cher, The Comedy Hour, the top 25. Yeah, Cher. How did she get to be so famous, so stupendous? How did she get her break? Because her husband, Sonny, she was on a comedy show with him. And he was the goofball of the two. Cher may have been a little goofy, but Sonny was the joke. And she was the straight woman. She was the one who was smarter and better. And he was the joke. There's a great image for women, and everyone enjoyed the laugh. Muppet Show had, of course, Miss Piggy. Everyone remembers Miss Piggy. So, in so many different ways, there's the TV show Alice, dealing with her. This is from a movie. The movie Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, and they turned that into a TV show. You've got the Jeffersons, Louise, who is the co-lead in that, and again is the straight woman to George Jefferson, who is the goofball. And he's the joke and she's the strength, but yet they respected each other. And they had love for each other. And they did different things. Let's see, what else? Good Times. The mother was the lead character there. Notice when we're going through this, we're also finding shows with Hispanic leads like Chips. We have black shows like Good Times and the Jeffersons. We've got mixed characters. Barney Miller had a Polish guy, a black guy, an old guy. We're seeing many different types of people, many different types of show. Mind you, there's not a lot of sci-fi. There is Logan's Run. I saw the series. I remember it from the 70s. I was alive then. Not that great. But it was based on the movie, which was really good. It was a very good movie. And they tried to make it into a TV series. Didn't really work. You can't run that concept every week of people trying to escape. It's basically they're doing the movie in a longer format. It doesn't quite work. But you had Land of the Lost. A family gets lost and they go back in time to back when the dinosaurs were still alive, and there's lizard men that are alive. And how do they deal with that? That's more like a kid's Saturday morning show, but it was incredibly popular. I remember watching it all the time. And of course, going back, you had the top shows. Charlie's Angels, 3 women private investigators. They could fight. They were smart. They could think their way through problems. Wonder Woman, again, a goddess, a superhero. Sure, the show was a little campy, but then again, it's not like they had technology like we have today. There was no such thing as CGI. But yet, she was a female lead in her own titled show, and she beat men on a regular basis, and people loved it. People wanted to see it. Gee, I wonder, is it because none of these characters I'm mentioning, they're not girl bosses? Not one of them are girl bosses. Not one of them are Mary Sue's. They all have flaws. They weren't perfect. They were all feminine. They knew they were women. Whether or not they were gay, we don't know, because almost every single show didn't talk about that, didn't care. It wasn't important. It wasn't critical. In sci-fi, Wonder Woman, yes, Wonder Woman had a boyfriend. Fair enough, I'll give you that. And the Bionic Woman kinda, sort of had a boyfriend in the $6 Million Man, but she had her own show with her own life, doing her own things. And her powers were not the same as his. She wasn't a duplicate of him. She had different powers that emphasized her aspects, and people could really enjoy that. I think that's something we don't have anymore. That you can just enjoy a character because they're well written, because they're just another person. Or at least another person in those realms. How about in the 1980s? Again, best TV shows, IMDb. Simpsons is a family unit. We don't see those anymore. Where you have a mom and a dad and you have kids. And while they may be somewhat dysfunctional, it's a loving family. They're not getting divorced. They're not on their second or third marriage. The kids aren't from 5 different baby daddies. It's a family. Seinfeld. Well, you had Elaine, one of the key characters of that show, but it's a show about nothing. Some people like it, some people don't. I wasn't a big fan of that. Let's see. Star Trek. Several female leads in there. Were they the most powerful characters? No. But they were recurring characters, and they were their own characters, and a lot of people are fans of them. Murder, She Wrote, an old woman. Can't call her a girl boss, can we? We can call her a strong female lead. She was smart. She was capable. She was a writer. She was financially successful. She's a great character. But she wasn't running around because she was sexy. I mean, when she was younger, absolutely. Angela Lansbury, when she was young, she was a knockout. But in the series, she's old. But we liked her anyway. So it's not the sex appeal. It's not because we wanted to sleep with her. It's because she was a good character. She was well written. It made sense. It wasn't because she was the bestest ever. It wasn't because she was the most powerful and everyone was dumbed down around her. No, she was just better. She was smart. She worked on it. She earned everything that she did. Now, of course, there's always Baywatch, and people like to point to that and go, oh my God, Baywatch. Well, that's just chicks in bikinis. Yeah, that's Benny Hill. There's something for that entertainment. And guess what? There were guys running around in bikinis too, or shorts on Baywatch. Guilty pleasure for a lot of people for the obvious reason. So I'm not counting that. You had the Golden Girls. Huge. Again, older women. It's not about the sex appeal. None of them were girl bosses. They were female leads, strong characters. People enjoyed watching them, men and women, straight and gay, of every kind of ethnicity, and everyone around the world enjoyed that. Why? Good writing. Characters that made sense. The world didn't get dumber because they were on screen. They were as smart as anyone else. They had their flaws. They had their foibles. But they were just well written and well acted. And they were believable in the scenarios that they were in. Married with Children. Going back to the same thing as The Simpsons. Best family in the world? Absolutely not. The Bundys are a horrible family, but they love each other. Al wasn't trying to get divorced. He may have his problems, but he loved his wife. And he came home and he took care of his family. Didn't like his kids. They were disappointments. Loved them anyway. It's a family unit. Dysfunctional? Absolutely. We can laugh at them and go, their family was so much worse than ours. But we loved them because they loved each other. Do you notice there's certain themes we keep repeating as we're looking through the time frame? If we're looking at the 70s and the 80s, it's not about the age. It's not about the sexuality. It's not even about the whether they're single or in a family. When we're seeing women and any of these characters, what we're seeing consistently over and over again, regardless of color or any other factor, they're well written. In the universe they're in, whether that's in outer space or whether it's on Earth, whether it's in the past or in the future, they make sense. They fit into the world they are in, and some of them are better than many people, but they're not the best. Some of them are dumber than others, but they're not the worst. They're just people. People who do things and it makes sense because it fits their character. It fits the world they're in. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of very successful 1980s sci-fi. I mean, you had the Beetlejuice, but that's a cartoon. And not the best cartoon at all, based on the movie. Okay. I'm trying to just scroll on through. I know there was a couple of others. By the way, In the Heat of the Night, very well done series, based on a really great movie with Carol O'Connor. Really did well. 21 Jump Street had some decent characters in there. You had Saved by the Bell, Family Ties. Notice the 80s were about families. A lot of families. A lot of successful families. Family Matters, based off of the Die Hard series. A black family. And of course, Urkel, which suddenly became the thing. I don't know why. But because I hated Urkel. I don't know. Other people may love Urkel. I hate Urkel. I hated that character. I've talked to Jaleel White. I've done an interview of Jaleel White, actually. But that was years and years ago. But I did an interview with Jaleel White. Nothing like his Urkel character, which is fantastic. I hate that character of Urkel. But the Family Matters, again, a family unit. They love each other. They're not the best in the universe. They're not the smartest. They're not the dumbest. They've got their issues, but they love each other. And we can love them because they love each other as we laugh at the things that they go through. The Cosby Show, another great show. A successful black family, more successful than in, Family Matters. You know, these are more educated, more elite, if you want to call them that, or more professional family, doing well, covering a lot of different aspects. And, oh, but they're black. Who cares? Did anyone care? No. No one cared. It was the 1980s, 20 years after the Civil Rights Movement. And no one cared that the mother, Felicia Rashad, was a lawyer and she made a lot of money. She was actually very successful. She was I think in this show, she was the breadwinner and incredibly successful. No one cared. No one was screaming about, oh my God, she makes so much money. No one cared. No one cared that she's very hyper intelligent and more intelligent than most people that would wind up on the show. No one cared that she was often the straight woman to Bill Cosby's joke, that of the family, she was the stronger one in the family. No one cared. No one cared that she was the center of the family. No one cared. Why? She was well written. We had respect for her. And in the universe of that TV show, very similar to the real world, she was respected and intelligent and intelligently written. She wasn't a girl boss. She wasn't trying to be the bestest ever and stepping on everyone else around her. She didn't dislike or denigrate her family or her husband. Do you notice there's a theme that we keep getting with these characters as we look in show after show after show, regardless of the color of the skin of the people, looking at regardless of the ages of the people, there are certain things that we're getting over and over again that do not exist today. And we need more of. We need to go backwards in time. I'm saying it again. We need to go back to the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. We had it right. It made more sense. You want to talk about good characters, we have to go backwards in time, not forwards. They are ruining sci-fi. They are ruining video games. They are ruining anime, and they are trying to ruin all of our TV shows. They're ruining entertainment because they're turning it into propaganda. It's not worth it. No one is watching The Acolyte. No one's watching Echo. No one's watching Rings of Power. No one's watching Madam Web. No one wants to see that crap. The Marvels, no one wants to see that because they're unengaging. And for all of the posturing they have and the berating, we get berated. The commercials, the TV shows, the articles, they're not there to lift us up or to engage us, to make us more interested in these characters. They're there to berate us. How dare you not watch this show? How dare you not go to the movie theater and give this studio your money to watch something that you don't like, that you don't enjoy? What do you mean you're not going out and playing this broken video game with this character that is unappealing in both the logic, the writing, even the gameplay mechanics? It's unengaging. How dare you not give money to that? I'm sorry. I don't want that. That's the girl boss. And the girl boss is a failure. It's not engaging. Wait a minute. So I've gone through a pretty decent amount. I mean, okay, Quantum Leap, again, sci-fi, but no female lead there. There wasn't a whole lot. I mean, Knight Rider, if you count the car, Kit was actually a male, now that I think about it. Designing Women, 4 women, also a little bit older, not as old as the Golden Girls, same concept, fine. Beauty and the Beast was a TV series, 55 episodes. I didn't watch that. I don't like Beauty and the Beast. It's more the romance, and I'm not into romance. But it was there. It was a series. Did well. But there's really no sci-fi. Well, there was the V series, which did have a female co-lead. So again, good characters there. And Different World, which I thought was a great series. Loved that. Teenagers, men, young women. I've met Kadeem Hardison in person. A great guy. Had a great conversation with him. Was hanging out with him as we were at a movie set. We were working on something together. But great cast, great actors, did a great job. Enjoyable people. The writing was smart and engaging. The storylines were engaging. It was worth it. And even though Lisa Bonet was a bit of a prima donna on the show, and therefore her character was the girl boss, for the success of the series of A Different World, for it to continue, it was on for almost, 7 years, I think it was on. And what they did is after the first year, they got rid of Lisa Bonet. They got rid of the girl boss. They got rid of the Mary Sue. And then they just focused on the rest of the real characters, and the show did fantastic. But the 80s were not the best for sci-fi for young women. Fantastic. But in the 90s, science fiction, science fantasy, women were right up in front. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, number 1. Number 1 in the 90s. And that's a character and a series beloved. Everyone watched that, at least a little bit. I even watched a little bit. Not really interested. I liked the movie. Not really interested as a series. The characters didn't get to me. but I know many people who did. Many people who loved this, loved the format, loved the ensemble cast of men and women, young men and women. Some of them were gay, some of them were straight, didn't really matter, no one cared. But there was a theme there. And even though they were super powered, they weren't girl bosses. They weren't dumbing down everyone else around them to be better. They were just good. They had flaws, they made mistakes, they got things right, and they got things wrong. There were consequences to their actions, and those consequences weren't always the best thing that could possibly ever happen. They were real. They had a reality in that world, in that universe. We don't see that anymore. You don't get that anymore. When She-Hulk does something, all the consequences are, of course, always positive every single time. Every action she takes. Rey Palpatine, when she's pulling components from a strange spaceship that she's never been on before, it's, of course, the best thing she could possibly do. Every action was a positive consequence. And we didn't buy it. No one liked that. The character is not beloved at all. You had the series of Angel, had a female cast, co-leads, Charisma Carpenter and a few others, but that came straight out of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. If Buffy wasn't a good show, you wouldn't have had the spinoff. And she did appear in Angel as well, so that's kind of 1 and 2. Stargate SG-1, a series that I think is immensely overrated. Pure sci-fi, absolutely futuristic. That's great. I liked a lot of the special effects. They had some interesting special effects. They had an interesting storyline from the movie. I thought the movie was so much better than the TV series. But Amanda Tapping, the female co-lead, was lifted up from her character in the movie. Still, a little bit girl boss, and now we start seeing some of the elements of the girl boss. She's elevated up and made to be better, not because she's a better character. She was being artificially pushed up. And as the series continued to go on and on and on and into the 2000s, she started gaining more and more elements of girl boss. She stopped being a female lead, equal and in the same, very much like most of her other co-leads on the show, the ensemble, and started taking on more of a girl boss character. Fine. Charmed. Great series. Again, science fantasy, bunch of witches, 3 women going through their travails, having their relationships. You know, a couple of the arcs in there I thought were pretty good. Acting was decent, but it was lighthearted and fun, and it made sense for the world it was in. And they weren't the bestest ever, and they had consequences to their actions. And yes, are they attractive? Absolutely. Just like in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yes, they're attractive. They're young women. Fantastic. That's easy on the eyes. Is that a bad thing? Why is that a bad thing? Why does every woman lead have to be ugly or fat or both? I don't know. But that's what we get nowadays. They have to be ugly or fat or both, and yet still be the most desired creature in the universe, and they must be the best at every physical activity. Why? That doesn't work. I don't get that. Let's go backwards in time. X-Files. Well, you had Scully. Scully was great. She was attractive. She was smart. She was capable. Again, Mulder was the goofball. She was the straight character. And I don't mean that by sexuality. I mean straight as the straight man. She was more the scientist, the hardline, serious facts. And he's off in his fantasies, his, fringe science. And she was the one with the hard science, the serious facts. She's the serious one. And it's a nice balance between them. And also there was a sexual tension. because opposites sometimes do attract, and that's fine as well. But it wasn't overpowering in the show. It wasn't the main thing that the show was about. It was about her being just as intelligent, just as capable, both of them making mistakes, both of them investigating mysteries equally and capably, and most importantly, because it made sense in the world they were in. They were intelligent, capable characters in that world. There were people who knew more than they did, who had more power than they did, who were more capable than they were, and there were people who were less. They were human beings. So let's keep going. I can't speak to Roswell, although I know that was a sci-fi show. I didn't really get to watch that. That was for younger kids than myself in the 90s. Fine. I'm just trying to point out Sliders, co-leads, decent show. Decent show. No one really stood out there. Was there another sci-fi? Dark Shadows was a remake. Didn't watch that. I don't think most people did. So there wasn't a lot of sci-fi featuring a lot of women, but then again, there wasn't a lot of sci-fi overall in TV at that time. And I know I'm going through TV. There's movies too. But do we get this feel of where we're seeing what's the difference between that female lead, which is beloved and people follow and people enjoy, and then there's what we see separate of that, where there's the girl boss and the Mary Sue, which are basically the same thing. They're pretty much interchangeable. What we have today versus what we had in the past. And maybe we need to go back to that. Maybe we need to go back to the Lara Croft video game. Yeah, she had big boobs. So what? She was also intelligent. She was rich. She was capable. She was beloved. Now, forgettable. Now she's forgettable. No one cares and no one wants to see her. Then, yes, her early stuff is collectible. Now, not so much. How about this? Let's look at the 2000s, okay? 2000 to 2010. You had The West Wing, which I love that series. Great show. A lot of very intelligent women on the show, as well as intelligent men, working in a government that we wish our government worked like. And even though they were all a bunch of Democrats running around, and pretty damn liberal at that, they at least had passion, they had intelligence, they had good intentions, they were active, and they were working hard. They were unbelievable. It's nothing like the world of politics, and we all know it, but the fantasy of them being the ideals was enrapturing. People enjoyed that. They loved watching these women talk as well and as capably as any man there, and sometimes far, far better. That they were all intelligent, working at the best of their ability, all for America. It was a very uplifting show. Loved that show. I loved The West Wing. You had Lost, which I know a lot of people liked. Lost is that sci fantasy, but that's when we start getting the J.J. Abrams. We start getting the girl boss. We start getting the illogical structure of shows where we're starting to get cheap. We don't have a plan. We just make it up as we go. We've got the mystery box that's always there. And this element of, well, I'll make someone better because we just need them to be for this moment. It's not logical. Things don't make sense anymore. There isn't a progression. And they write it off because, well, it's sci-fi, so you can do that. Not really. Not really. I never watched it. I know a lot of people did. I know a lot of people enjoyed it. I could never get into it. Never had a desire to. You had Friends. Half the cast of Friends were, actually, more than half the cast of Friends are all women. Very successful show. Do you notice there is a trend in these shows, whether they're in sci-fi or not? Over and over again, we're seeing the same kind of elements. Over and over again. And it's not, oh, well, they're just sexy women. It's not that they were playthings or somebody's wife or a trophy. They were as valuable as any other character. They were as intelligent as any other character. They had as many flaws as any other character. They were human beings. We had humans in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, even when we were talking about Game of Thrones. We had some fantastic characters. Cersei is an incredible character. She had ambition, she had goals, she was vindictive, she was intelligent, but not as intelligent as she thought. She had schemes and plans and power and ambition for even more power. She was evil, but she could be understandable. She was a mom. She was a lot of things. And people loved that character, even though it was a bad guy. Because women could be bad guys just as much as anyone else. Oh, she didn't run around with a sword trying to chop down the mountain. That would have been stupid. That would have made no sense. That would have been something that we would see today, but not when this show came out in 2011. She fought in a different way, and she was just as capable as everyone else, as well respected or despised as any other character, because she was real, because she had her flaws, because in the world she existed in, it made sense. We see that a lot over and over again. In the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, even in the early 2000s, women were portrayed logically. They made sense. They were good characters. They had strong writing. They fit into their worlds well. The world didn't warp around them, and nothing warped. They were just part of the world, and things happened. And we could understand that. We could appreciate that. We could see ourselves in those moments. Even if there were moments that we would never want to be in, we could understand them. And we could have empathy and sympathy in some cases. I think that's really impressive. Mandalorian first. Wow, Mandalorian, that's 2019, that's why. Okay. Hunter x Hunter. By the way, I would recommend the anime Hunter x Hunter. Fantastic. The Ant arc is incredible. I love Hunter x Hunter. And I know there's an X in there. When you're reading it in English, you don't read the X. So if you see something like Hunter x Hunter and there's an X in between and you're talking about an anime, you just don't say the X. It's Hunter x Hunter. And Hunter x Hunter is fantastic. The Ant arc is a huge arc of the series. It's like a season of its own. It's almost its own thing. It's almost like it's a spin-off. And the payoff, Meruem, is an incredible character. And his relationship with Komugi, oh my God. And I know people are going, Komugi? Who's Komugi? Who's Meruem? How do you even pronounce those words? I mean, I'm a fan and learned how to say their names properly. But that relationship, my God, if they could only take characters from that series and portray them in real life, you're talking about that would be award-winning. It would be stunning. It would blow people away. We have nothing on TV, nothing in video games. We have nothing today coming out of Hollywood that is even close to this decade-old cartoon and the relationship two characters, an ant and a blind girl, have. Yes, an ant, in fact, a king of ants, and a blind girl have one of the most compelling relationships in entertainment that I have ever seen, especially when it comes to sci-fi. One of the best. I literally was watching the pinnacle of the ant arc, and I was crying. I was literally crying. I think it was episode 134 in the series. Episode 134. I was in tears, crying my eyes out. I don't cry. I barely cried at my father's funeral. I was in tears watching the Ant arc. Because it was such a great story. Because it was so compelling. Because it touched my heartstrings. Not because, yes, the Ant King Meruem was incredibly powerful. He was overpowered. He's OP. Absolutely, he was OP. But he had a weakness that he didn't even know he had a weakness. And Komugi, a short, very plain, kind of fat young girl, blind. She found his weakness. Didn't even do it on purpose. Found his weakness and totally devastated him, enraptured him. And watching that happen was incredible. You want to talk about people want to ship Galadriel and Sauron? Go look at Komugi and Meruem. You want to talk about a relationship that you're just going to bawl your eyes out about, that you're going to be thinking about and going, what if these two could get together? Oh, how great these two characters were together. As much as I love Farscape, and I do, and I think that Ben Browder and Claudia Black as John Crichton and Aaron Sorkin are a phenomenal couple. I think their believability is absolutely on point. They make those characters come to life, and you believe that they are a couple. You believe that they're a mom and a dad. You believe their relationship, the ups and the downs, the problems that they have. You can buy into all of that. And I love that, and I still think that the Hunter x Hunter Ant arc with Meruem and Komugi was so much better. And I'm not going into detail about it because I don't want to cheapen it for people. I want you to go out and watch that. Don't go out and watch The Acolyte. Don't go and watch The Marvels. Don't waste your time with Echo. Don't waste your time with Rings of Power. Go watch Hunter x Hunter. Look at the Ant arc and follow that. You will thank me for it. You will appreciate it. You will enjoy yourself. Something that people don't do anymore. You just don't enjoy entertainment anymore. You don't enjoy sci-fi and sci-fantasy anymore because it's not appealing. It's not supposed to be appealing. It's supposed to be political. You're supposed to obey. You're supposed to comply. You're supposed to give your money dutifully and often because they said, hey, we have the right propaganda. We have a girl boss. You have to give us money. I'm sorry. No, I don't. And I won't. Go and watch Hunter x Hunter the Ant arc. You will thank me for this. You will be happy about that. And it's not that long ago. And yes, you have some of the girls in the TV series The Boys. You've got the early version of some of these characters. Fantastic. Fantastic characters. Believable in their world. Flawed. Very human. Very flawed. You can empathize with them. You can sympathize with some of them. You can appreciate these characters. They're intelligent. They're not stupid. The world doesn't get dumber, at least in the first season. The world doesn't get dumber because they exist or because some of the characters come out there and the girl bosses aren't girl bosses. They're superheroes, super powerful. They're not girl bosses. They're not Mary Sue's. And I think that makes a huge difference. Now, one of the other things that you notice as we're going through, and I'll talk about movies in just a second, but one of the things we notice in the TV, the progression, not only are we getting different types of stories, we're getting more sci-fi, we're getting more sci-fantasy coming in as we're going into the 90s and the 2000s and beyond, because technology finally gave us a way to portray magic, to portray science that we couldn't show convincingly the what's the word I'm looking for, the future or futuristic nature of it. We couldn't buy into the fantasy of it, the magical nature of it, because we didn't have the technology. Now we do. So we're getting more of those types of shows. We're seeing sci-fi and sci-fantasy. Back when I was in the 80s and I was growing up, 70s and 80s, sci-fi was mostly in your head. D&D was in your head. You didn't have video games. You didn't have home computers, not like we do now. I mean, the best we were playing with is Pong. If people don't know what that is, look it up. It's the first video game, Pong. And that's what we had. So everything was imagination. You had to read about it. You had to think about it. You had to talk with your friends about it to see how they imagined the scenario, the characters, their feelings about it. You would have that conversation. It was communal. We could all get together and talk about what does an elf look like? What does a dwarf look like? How do they act? How do we see their interaction? Does it make sense? Let's go play D&D. I want to be the race of dwarf. I always played dwarven assassins. I know D&D today says there are no races of characters. Yes, there are. There are races. Orcs are a race, and they are chaotic evil. Period. Whether you're male, female, doesn't matter. Orcs are chaotic evil. They're not black. They're not a substitute for some other group. They are orcs. They're chaotic evil, magical beings, and monsters, actually. And you kill them en masse, because that's a smart thing to do. And there is no social commentary about it. They have their own social commentary in their own world. And in their own world, the social commentary is orcs are evil. Women can be barbarians. You know, one of the few movies that I saw recently was the D&D movie with Chris Pine, who I don't think is a good actor. But I loved him in the D&D movie. And they had Michelle Rodriguez, which I thought was very funny. She's playing a barbarian. And Michelle Rodriguez is anything but a big, huge, strong woman. But she could play the barbarian because we're in a fantasy world. And she wasn't the biggest or the strongest or the most powerful. She was a barbarian. And she played her barbarian character the way a barbarian character is in D&D. You could appreciate the reason why that series, that movie, did so well and actually would have done better. They were promising us, oh, well, there's a bunch of girl bosses in this, and no one went to see it. The movie flopped because the director came out and said, we have girl bosses. The movie flopped because they said they have Mary Sue's. That the girls were ruling everything, that the universe was dumbed down and warped and bent around all of the female characters. That's not what happened in the D&D movie. That's not how that movie came across. Chris Pine is a single dad, and he isn't some kind of scumbag. He's a good guy. He's a good dad. Oh my God, we can portray a single parent that happens to be a dad, and he's not evil and terrible and involved in crime. Well, he is criminal, now I think about it. Chris Pine is a criminal in that. But there is an altruism to him as well. But he loved his daughter. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that was a great thing. And it wasn't because the daughter was mixed race. No one gave a damn. No one cared about the races of the barbarians or the druid or anyone. It was fantasy. What we cared about, did the characters make sense? Were they real in that universe? Did they make sense there? Were they realistic there? Can we laugh and enjoy and empathize and sympathize and be angry there, in their world? because we don't want to be in our world. That's why we're watching the damn movie in the first place. And we don't want the female characters to be a bunch of Hillary Clintons running around, a bunch of Kamala Harrises running around. I'm sorry, that's not attractive to most people. What we want is that ideal. We don't want the girl boss. We don't want the Mary Sue. We want women in our science fiction, in our science fantasy, in our entertainment. People who are flawed. Is that so much to ask for? This is such an appeal. Realistically, I'm trying to reach out to Hollywood. I'm trying to reach out to the video game developers. I'm looking out for the writers out there, the people who make anime. I'm begging you. I want to have more anime, more sci-fi movies and TV shows that I can get into. I want that entertainment. That is what I have always been attracted to. That is something that I have always had in my life. And it's so difficult now because what you're trying to shove down my throat is substandard, rotten crap that nobody wants, that nobody appreciates, that no one wants to be near, that people are running away from as fast as they can. That's why all your studios are failing. That's why your TV series are failing. You're spending hundreds of millions. I once said, and I've said this before, but when I was running for Congress in 2014, I was asked by a news station, one of the news reporters, and they asked me a question. Mike, you don't have a whole lot of money. So do you think you'll do well in this election, running for Congress, federal office? And my answer to him was, it takes 10 times as much money to tell a lie and make people believe it than it does to tell the truth. It takes 10 times as much money as to make people believe something that is incredible than it does to tell the truth, to tell something compelling, something honest. Now, regardless of how I did in the politics, that's a true statement. That's a truism of life. And we see this. Look at how much money they have put in, $750 million into the Lord of the Rings. Into the Rings of Power. Amazon has spent $750 million, nearly $1 billion, to try and convince people that their universe with their girl boss, Guy Ladriel, is compelling and interesting, and that you should have empathy and sympathy, and if you don't, you're the evil bastard. You're the bad guy because you don't appreciate and love and bow down to their girl boss. And yet, even as they are threatening people, cajoling people, trying to silence people online, as they push this through all of the marketing, the entertainment, and trying to shove this down people's throats. I'll show you what I mean. Here it is on IMDb. On IMDb, look at the ad. The Rings of Power. Watch it now. No, I will not. That's massive cost of advertising that they're shoving down your throat, trying to convince you that garbage is suddenly a delicacy. It's just not. It's not because of the race, the actors' races. No one cares. It's not because of the actors' politics. No one cares. It's not because of the actors' genders. No one cares. No one cares about their sexual preferences either. Oh yeah, there's one or two people who ship these characters. Who cares? There's always people who ship. The shippers always find something to ship. That's their thing. They will always find that. Whether or not it's on TV and whether or not someone's trying to make an entire series spending nearly $1 trillion to put in front of them, they will find something to ship. Don't worry about them. That's a fringe. No, the majority of people don't care. We're not watching Rings of Power to see a girl boss. We're not watching Star Wars to see a girl boss. We're not playing a video game in the universe of Star Wars to get a girl boss. That's not what we want. Nobody wants that. Not the women, not the men, not the trans, not the gay, not the straight. Nobody wants this. Is this getting through to the movie studios? Is it getting through to the writers, the directors, the producers? Do you understand? The more that you waste our time trying to convince us that your sexual preferences, your sexual gender, your ideology politically, the more that you're trying to sell us that in our science fiction and our science fantasy and our entertainment, the less we give a damn. I will go back in time. As I said, you can go back and watch Farscape. You will enjoy the entire series. You will have a great time with that. You can go back in time and watch Hunter x Hunter, the Ant Arc. Hell, you can watch the entire season, 2 seasons, the entire show, 144 episodes, and you will be satisfied. You will be happy that you have seen that show. You can go back in time. You could watch Quark or Space 1999, Star Trek. You can go, I'm talking about the original Star Trek, or even Deep Space Nine, Star Trek The Next Generation. We can go through series after series, show after show, entertainment. Well, let's talk about the movies. Because they keep trying to sell you on this idea, you have no choice. You have to. If you're a woman, if you're a person of color, you have to like the modern media. You have to like the girl boss. You have to like what they're shoving down your throat because it never existed before. That's a lie. Within Our Gates, that's the 1920s. How about for women? Passion of Joan of Arc. It's one of the essential top Times Film Critic Choice 100 best movies of the past 10 decades. 10 decades, 100 years. And wow, Passion of Joan of Arc. Her story, movie about her, how interesting. Besides Orphans of the Storm or Pandora's Box. Well, women are being represented there. Hey, wait a minute. Well, the 1930s, women are represented there too. Not just because they're women and they're just a housewife sitting in a kitchen barefoot and pregnant. No, they have active characters that are involved in their storylines, even in the 1930s. Like Gone with the Wind is probably one of the better known ones of those. In the 1940s, which I would say M, the movie M, just the letter M. It's German. It's a foreign film. Fantastic. Really well done. Not about girl boss, but still, great film. But we've got the Lady Eve. We got Mildred Pierce. Beauty and the Beast. I mean, Bette Davis, there's a reason why she was considered a powerhouse actress. Because she was. And yeah, in the 1940s, you got Let There Be Light, a 1946 film, which I know it was very difficult to see until recently, but black people were there too. And there are other films, and you go into the cowboy genre, you get to see more of the diversity there. Hollywood wasn't great at that in the 20s and 30s, but it became better at it as time progressed. But we had other things. Let's see. The Seven Samurai. That's a foreign film. Japanese. These are all Japanese people. Fantastic. So great that we turned it into The Magnificent Seven. And that got a remake even recently. That we've used that as a catapult for several different types of stories. There's an anime of The Seven, which is based on Samurai 7. Great film in the 1950s. Vertigo, great film. Rio Bravo, good film. In the 1960s, now we start getting things like The Black Girl. We start getting films like Psycho, which I thought was fun. That was a good one. Sadly, she died in that one, but, same idea. You get Night of the Living Dead. Barbara, they're coming to get you, Barbara. Bonnie and Clyde. Bonnie being a key titular character. Bride of Frankenstein. Now we start getting into modern days. And we start getting things like The Empire Strikes Back. Well, we also had in the 1970s, and they should have had it here, Star Wars. Princess Leia, great character. Classic, feminine character. Impressive character. People loved her. And she is an archetype all onto herself. That's how much of a standout she was. Great. What about the original Alien film? Also in the 70s, late 70s, but the 70s, with Ellen Ripley, classic character, stand out, a staple of sci-fi. People love her character. And they don't have to be young girls to look at Ellen Ripley or Princess Leia or Sarah Connor from the Terminator and say, oh, I love that character. I think they're great. Again, none of them are girl bosses. All of them are strong female characters. They have intelligence. They don't have super strength. They're not super smart. They're not bending the world around them to make them better. They make mistakes. There are consequences that cost them. They're just good. They're intelligent in their universe. They fit in their worlds. And we can appreciate them because they're not perfect, because they aren't the bestest ever, because they're not a girl boss, because they respect their peers and the people around them, and some of them they don't like, and that's okay. So you got a lot of great films with women and about women, like Moonstruck, which is a rom-com. Great film. Fun film. Not that serious. You get things like Malcolm X coming out later on. You get Hardboiled coming over from overseas. Another great film. Now, most of the films on this list of the best of the last decade, I don't like. I think the editors here are horrible, and they have a horrible taste in most of the films that they pick. But again, I'm just pointing out that when we get told these things that, when we look at IMDb, the best 50 movies since the 1970s, they want you to believe there were no women in movies. You liars. Alien, #1 film. Ellen Ripley, best rated, top of the list in the last 50 years. What's number 3? Aliens, where Ripley comes back. Second one, where she's a mom in that movie, protecting a child. Feminine. Not perfect, not girl boss, not the bestest ever, and people love this. And they say, well, these characters from the 70s and the 80s, they don't exist. That you have to accept the current version because that's the only one that's ever existed. They're lying to your face. They say that about black people and Hispanics all the time. You didn't exist in movies. You are only the bad guys. You are only weak background characters. Lie, lie, lie. I don't know. So this is me just venting. Been venting for about an hour and 15 minutes. I'm still trying to figure out this channel, what I do every Saturday at 3 p.m. Still trying to work it out. I want you to understand my passions, why I love certain things, why I love science fiction, why I love science fantasy, why I enjoy some of the movies, the anime, the books that I do. The things that make me who I am when I'm not being a political commentator, when I'm just talking with my friends on the phone, we're playing a video game, we're running around outside. Because we're more, each and every one of us are more than just one thing. And perhaps that is the thing to understand about what's different in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. What's different than what we have today? A girl boss is only one thing. A girl boss. A Mary Sue is only one thing, a Mary Sue. And that's why they're not female leads. They're not strong or weak female leads. They're not female and they're not leads. They're girl boss and they're Mary Sue. They are alien in the most depressing kind of way. They are strange and forbidden and outside the realm of norms, even within the universes that they are in. They are antithetical to entertainment. And we can't enjoy video games or movies or TV shows when we are being presented over and over again these repulsive characters. And I don't know what it takes for Hollywood to get that. But I'm trying. I mean, that's what this whole thing's about. It's not organized. It's not laid out. And maybe I explained it badly. Maybe I know I'm gregarious. Maybe I could have said it in 5 minutes instead of an hour and 15. Maybe. But I wanted to make my point. I wanted to share with you the thought, the observation that we have always enjoyed and loved women in sci-fi and sci-fantasy, in entertainment. We've always loved that. They've never been neglected. Yes, there have been times when they've been better or worse, true enough, but never neglected. Never were they outsiders. No one was gatekeeping them. They were in, and we have many, many beloved characters reflecting that. But now we're being sold this idea that you have to have a girl boss. You have to have diversity. You have to have equity. You have to have this anti-entertainment, this propaganda as your daily diet. And you have to give money and time and comply. And no, I won't. I'll go back in time. I'll watch, the old Wonder Woman series from the 1970s. I enjoyed that. That was fun. I'll watch The Bionic Woman because that was fun. I enjoyed that. I'll go back to my Farscape. I'll go back to my anime. I'll go back in time. I want to see Vegeta fall in love with Bulma again. For people who don't know, that's a reference to Dragon Ball Z. Vegeta, one of my favorite characters. Vegeta, one of my favorite characters. I love Vegeta. I think Vegeta is one of the best characters in all of Dragon Ball Z. That's my opinion. I love Vegeta. The only person that I like more than Vegeta is got to be Krillin. I think Krillin's incredible, fantastic. The strongest human in the entire Dragon Ball Z series. If it weren't for the Saiyans, Krillin would be a god. He would rule planets. He's so powerful. And I love his character. And he's married to Android 18. Oh my god. The man is fantastic. And what's one of the things that makes Dragon Ball Z, the anime, so fantastic, so enrapturing, something that we can all get behind? Krillin's married to Android 18. He has a child. Vegeta is married to Bulma. They have kids. Goku is married to Chi-Chi. They have kids. It's about families. Families and friends growing over time. And it's one of the most watched anime in the world, in the history of the world. Maybe the girl boss movement isn't the best movement. I don't know. So, that's me ranting. This is my Saturday, 3 o'clock. I only meant to spend about an hour. On these Saturdays, I'm thinking I spend about an hour and a half with you guys. Just ranting. Just ranting and raving and talking about the things that I think are interesting. Maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't. Maybe you'll call in, maybe you'll leave a comment and tell me, Mike, but you missed this movie, you missed this video game, this TV show. I'm not trying to tell you that I'm going to be comprehensive on all of that. I can't be. But as an older man, I can tell you where the quality that I have seen in my lifetime, in 5 decades, what are the things that compel me, that bring me some of the greatest joy? And it is in sci fi, it is in sci fantasy, and it has nothing to do with anything that is going on today. There is nothing that is on TV today, that is in the movie theaters today, virtually nothing that is a video game today that brings me as much joy as going back 30 years. The stuff I was enjoying 30 years ago, 20 years ago, was so much better than everything that we are getting today. And I want to go back in time. I want to have that joy. I want Warhammer to not have femstodes. I hate that I have to even consider the femstodes, female custodes, in Warhammer 40K. They can't exist. The lore tells us they can't exist. Why are they shoving that into my entertainment? Why are they destroying my Warhammer 40K? I don't want a female custodes. No one has ever wanted the female custodes. Games Workshop is doing it because they took a loan from a DEI company, an outlet. But the fans have never wanted female custodes. Never. We haven't asked for it. We haven't begged for it. No one's been trying to build it. That's not part of our community. Why are they shoving it in there? Why are they reducing the amount of enjoyment that we have for something that's not adding to it, that isn't building on all the building blocks that have been there before? We're that base, our foundation in this game. They're destroying it. Why should I give you more money for that? Why should I give you my support, my time, my time away from work and the pressures of life? Why would I try and give you my escapism for something that's just going to trap me in a horrible prison, a horrible, dank prison at that? And yes, I am calling the femstodes a dank prison. It is a dank prison of the mind. The female custodes are a horrible, horrendous idea, and it should be removed from all of Warhammer because it's just another girl boss. It's just another ugly, dumb, world-breaking female character inserted artificially into a universe that should never have them. That's the girl boss. Girl bosses are ugly, they're dumb, they're artificial, they're world-breaking, they're uninteresting, and no one wants them. At least that's my opinion about it. You may think something different. Next week, I think I'm going to try and do something a lot different than what I have been doing. I talked about Farscape a little bit, who I thought one of the greatest villains is. I'm going to figure out a list, still working on it, on who I think are the greatest villains in science fiction, sci-fantasy and science fiction. I'm trying to work that list out. It's hard. I do miss that James Earl Jones is dead. The voice of Darth Vader is gone. Enigmatic, and he was a great actor, a great man in and of himself, but he was enigmatic as Darth Vader, and we will not have his like again, sadly. But I want to put, and obviously Darth Vader is on that list of greatest villains ever. I'm working on it. I will get that. I figured out how to fix if sun sets so that you can see it. It was a matter of the gamma. I fixed that. I am playing through that game, the prologue. The game's going to be coming out in about 2 weeks in October. I will be buying it most likely, and I'll play through the official version when it comes out. I'm looking at one or two other games in the survival genre that I'm most likely going to be playing through as well. So maybe you guys will enjoy that. I know I was trying to do Fallout during the lunch hour to play through that because I've never actually played all the way through the Fallout series. So Fallout 4 is essentially brand new to me. I know some people have asked for it in a poll. I put out a poll and people said they want to see me play that. I'm having a problem with my system running the sound on that. So let me work on that. I have heard you guys. I am paying attention. If there is a game you want to see me play and probably die and fail at miserably, and that's okay, because I play the games not because I'm the bestest, not because I'm brilliant, but because I enjoy it. As long as it's the game I enjoy, I will play it. I don't care if I die a lot. I play because I want to have that fun, that experience, that universe. I want to escape. And if that escape includes that my character dies half a dozen times, that's okay. You should have seen me trying to figure out how to play Project Zomboid. Oh my God, I died over and over again, like in the first 10 minutes for like a day. A day of just dying 10 minutes, every 10 minutes, just die. It was horrible. I still am horrible at Project Zomboid. Love the game. Spent hundreds of hours playing it. Love Project Zomboid. But that's another thing altogether. So I'm trying to work on putting this all together to make sense. I love your suggestions, guys. I am paying attention. I'm just trying to figure out a way to explain my passions and to share them with you guys. And to hear what you think about my passions. Whether you agree or you disagree, that's okay. I want to hear about that. I'm trying to work it out. I will figure it out hopefully soon. That all being said, tomorrow, which is Sunday, I will be doing my normal political commentary, the No Sound Bites Allowed live stream, which is at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a lot to talk about. There is, not only is there the debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump to review, I just reviewed Kamala Harris doing an interview with ABC News. It's the first time she's done an interview by herself. It was only 11 minutes. I mean, my God, talk about lightning fast. But she did an interview with ABC News. And I did do an in-depth analysis. We'll talk about that tomorrow. We'll be talking about what's happening overseas with Iran, with Hamas, the American hostages, especially in the wake of September 11th. What's happening there, what we can expect to see happening with Ukraine and with China, what we can see happening here domestically in the United States, what's really happening with all of the illegal aliens entering into America. Are they eating cats? Are they eating dogs? Are they eating geese? Do we have any evidence if they are? Does it even matter if they are? Is there a bigger problem that is being obscured by that statement? We'll talk a little bit about all of those things. That's tomorrow on No Sound Bites Allowed at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's on Rumble, that's on YouTube, and a dozen other channels. I hope you join us. I hope you will take time to follow us for the politics there. And next Saturday, 3 o'clock, I'll be doing something completely different, probably with a guest. And we'll figure it all out together. All right? I thank you guys for being able to spend some time with me. I appreciate you. I thank you as I go through this experiment and figure it out. And I appreciate every moment you give to me to be able to do that. Thank you. Thank you so much.